evening, Facebook friends, family, clergy, government officials, community leaders, and viewers. Welcome to Henrico Ministers Conference 9th virtual share entitled Real Issues and Right Now Strategies. However, tonight our topic is faith, facts, fears, and resources in relationship to the COVID-19 vaccination. We definitely want to take this time to acknowledge God as our Savior, as our Father, the one who created all things. Everything was created by Him and for Him. And we certainly want to acknowledge that. And we want to acknowledge that we are required to walk by faith and not by sight. And so tonight, this session is designed to enlighten, to educate, and illuminate your mind in this virtual space regarding the facts about the COVID-19 vaccination, because some of you may be somewhat apprehensive, and we're hoping that something will be said to encourage you in your faith, to strengthen you in your decision to make in regards to receiving the COVID-19 vaccination. And so, without any further ado, I want to present to you our moderator for the evening. He is none other than Reverend Dr. Price L. Davis, a more than qualified, anointed, and appointed servant of God, a powerful proclaimer of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and the pastor of Mosby Memorial Baptist Church, and a member of the Henrico Ministers Conference. Good evening, Dr. Davis. How are you?
I am well, Reverend Manson. How are you this evening?
I'm doing extremely well. As I tell most folk, blessed and highly favored, just like you. Just take it away from here. We're looking forward to the ministry tonight.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for that introduction, Reverend Manson. Greetings, Facebook family, clergy, friends, and all of our virtual viewers. Welcome to Real Issues Right Now Strategies, presented by the Henrico Ministers Conference. Family, it has been 1 year and 1 month that we have been navigating this global pandemic. But God has kept us. God has wiped our tears and held us close during these difficult moments during this pandemic. Now that there is a vaccine, we can begin to see the light. We can begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Progress is being made to ensure that our communities are being vaccinated quickly, safely, and equitably. The Virginia Department of Health statistics show that as of today, 43% of Virginia's population has received their first dose, and 30% have been fully vaccinated. Yet, there still are many individuals trying to decide whether the vaccine is safe or even necessary. Well, if this is you tonight, if this is someone that you might know, you are in the right place. Tell them to come on and come and share with us in this moment. The guests that I have with me tonight are competent professionals that want to share and are able to share with you the facts surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine and help you to face your fears and frustrations and ultimately help all of us move forward into a bright future. Our panelists tonight are 4 individuals that come to us highly recommended and able to speak to the issues. Our first panelist is Reverend Dr. Kimberly Ridley. She is the senior pastor of the Light Community Church in Richmond, Virginia. Next is Dr. Melissa Viray. She is the Deputy Director of Richmond City and Henrico Health Districts. Next is Nurse Deb Zimmerman. She is with the Virginia Department of Health. And last but not least, Miss Monica Smith-Callahan, the newly elected, not elected, but newly appointed Deputy County Manager for Community Affairs in the County of Henrico. I want to first, before we jump into this conversation, I want to begin tonight with Dr. Viray. Dr. Viray, the elephant in the room that we all know, that the pause has been lifted on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Tell us what important information should our listeners know about this vaccine being reintroduced into the rotation?
Right. Thank you for having me. And I think that's the question on everyone's mind tonight is what
Mhm.
does it mean that we have Johnson and Johnson back? And I think the
Mhm.
key, I think the three things I would say are that the choice to become vaccinated, period, from with any vaccine is a personal one, and which vaccine you choose is also a personal choice. I think when it comes
Mhm.
down to it, there is the risk for COVID-19 infection. The harms from infection can be very high in terms of hospitalization, for death, for long COVID. Um, and the benefits of vaccination outweigh the risks of vaccination in almost all cases. The one exception I would say is that for Johnson and Johnson, if you are a woman who is under the age of 50 and you are able to take another vaccine, because of this very, very rare side effect that we have seen called thrombosis with thrombocytopenia, meaning clots with low platelets. Because it's very rare, but because we have seen it with Johnson and Johnson and not with the other vaccines, we encourage women to consider the alternative vaccines, but to still get vaccinated because there are still Pfizer and Moderna vaccines that are out in that are available where we have not seen this side effect. We have also not seen this side effect in Johnson and Johnson in older individuals, and we have not really seen it in men for the most part. So we are mostly our guidance is that if you are, please consider getting vaccinated. And if you are considering Johnson and Johnson and you're a woman under 50, you may want to consider an alternative vaccine. But if you have to get Johnson and Johnson vaccine for whatever reason, the risk of this adverse event is very, very small, and that overall the risks of infection for COVID-19, for the most part, outweigh the benefits of vaccination. That's probably the biggest take home I have.
So we need to understand that the benefit of the Johnson & Johnson, if that is the vaccine that individuals need to or desire to take, or that's the only one available, that the benefits far outweigh the risks that individuals that receive this vaccination, correct?
Agreed. And I would just encourage again, my one caveat is that since we have so many other vaccines, both Pfizer and Moderna are easily available, that women under 50 can consider an alternative vaccination, even though it's a very rare event. Women may be more comfortable getting this other vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dr. Viray, thank you for
But,
that answer.
go ahead, sorry.
Okay. No, go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate that, yes, like you were saying, overall, the benefits of vaccination, regardless of which vaccine you opt for, outweigh the risks from vaccination. And in particular, when it comes to how we're going to get back to normal, how we're going to get back to being able to go out and be with our families and our friends the way we were, vaccination with whatever vaccine brand you choose is the way that we're going to get there.
So bottom line, everyone needs to get vaccinated.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Friends, globally, over 3 million people have died from the coronavirus. And here in America, the death toll has reached 550,000 plus individuals. Dr. Ridley, many believers, many Christians, including our Black and Brown brothers and sisters, are still apprehensive about taking the vaccine. Dr. Ridley, can you share with us um, uh, some of the things that you're doing to address this particular issue in your congregation with the lack of trust, and how you are going about handling that particular issue when it comes up?
Sure, sure. Thank you for the question. Just so everyone knows, I'm not a medical doctor. So my questions are going to be answered based on my doctorate, which is in ministry. There are some qualified medical professionals here, but from a faith perspective, as you mentioned, Dr. Davis, at the beginning, we've been in this thing for 13 months. And a lot of the apprehension in my case, as far as my congregants are concerned, were more early on, when there was so little information. And what I've seen over time is, as more information has been shared, the level of apprehension has gone down. So my part of my responsibility, I feel, is to continue to give information, such as what is happening today. We've also had a forum at the Light Community Church, where we had a nurse, Zimmerman, came onto that program as well, to continue to share information. I believe that information is powerful, and it does lift the apprehension. So personally, as far as my congregants, most of them that I've been in contact with have begun to feel more comfortable. In addition, I've been working and collaborating with other churches and other organizations to make the vaccinations available to our folks, starting with our elderly congregants. Getting their names personally, getting their birth dates, getting them on lists, having people call them, because part of the apprehension, as you know, as a pastor, was the technology of how to sign up for the vaccination. Even if they weren't fearful, it was how to navigate the process. And so as the process has become easier to navigate, I think that's been helpful. But as a pastor, I also participated to make sure that folks' names were on the list. And collaboration is something I do want to stress, because we all are connected to someone who may have better information than what we have. And so as that information comes available, I've been putting it in our bulletin, sharing it on our virtual worship, so that people can be aware of what they're doing, even to the point where they started now being able to vaccinate those who were 16 and over in some cases, to let people know that this is available. Secondly, and I'm going to wrap up, I share my testimony that I was vaccinated. And so for people who may be silently apprehensive, they see I'm still here, right? That I don't have an extra ear, I didn't grow an extra head, that I, and to be very honest, not just in my congregation, setting, but to let my leadership know. That's very important, to share information with them, actually asking them in leadership meetings, have you had your vaccine? And to tell them my experience, which was my second vaccination, my second shot. I did feel a little lethargic, woke up that morning, had a little injection site pain, but I am still here to tell the story. And I think for those of us who have some influence in the faith community, getting your shot and telling people that you have it is one way to help alleviate some of the apprehension. So that's how I want to share that.
All right. So from two faith leaders to our viewers, from two faith leaders, I can also share, just as Dr. Ridley, I have been fully vaccinated, and many of the things that Dr. Ridley and the Light are doing are some of the similar things that we at Mosby have done, and making sure that when opportunities come up, we're on a email list from the Virginia Department of Health. We also have a minister who is a pharmacist, who has helped us in getting together and organizing opportunities for individuals to come to a particular pharmacy and get their shots. And I'm proud of Mosby, because at first, prior in the fall of 2020, look, my folks, along with myself, I was like, no, I'm not getting the vaccination. But as the time got closer, and I think as individuals moved to a space where they understood and had a little bit more education about the vaccines, there was a level of comfortability that they had and decided, hey, we're going to do this. And so definitely, Dr. Ridley, I applaud you and the light in what you all are doing, and thank God for you all. Dr. Viray, let me address this next question to you. I want to first say thank you to all of you for the work that you do, and to Dr. Viray, thank you for the tireless work that you're doing in making sure that our community stays healthy. Some of our viewers don't believe that the vaccine is safe. Some believe that the vaccine contains the virus, while others are just plain suspicious about the virus. Could you take a moment and take a time to share with our viewers just a bit of a brief history and the science behind the vaccine and the efficacy of Pfizer, of Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for all of the work that you all have been doing in your ministries to move. Hopefully I'm not lagging too much, but thank you.
I can hear you. You're frozen, but we can hear you.
Well, then I'm just going to keep on talking. No, I appreciate all of the work you all have been doing to help people to be more comfortable with vaccine. I think I will just say that there are, I'll try to be brief. There are 3 vaccines, as you mentioned, that are currently on the market in the US. There's Moderna, there's Pfizer, and there's Johnson & Johnson. Moderna and Pfizer are the same kind of vaccine, an mRNA vaccine, and Johnson & Johnson is what's called a viral vector. Both of these vaccine types are relatively new, but people didn't start doing this last year. People have been working on these platforms for years and years, and learned from lessons from Ebola, learned from SARS, the first SARS back in Hong Kong in 2001. They learned from MERS in the Middle East, and they used those lessons to be able to build a vaccine in relatively quick time. But all of these vaccines work by putting a little bit of genetic material into your cells, not mixing with your DNA, your genetic material at all. But what it does is it helps your cells to create a little spike protein that normally belongs on the outside of the coronavirus. Your body uses this protein to learn how to make antibodies and cellular defense against it. So no, the vaccines don't contain any virus at all, or any coronavirus at all, but it uses that genetic material to learn how to build antibodies and cellular response, so that when the real coronavirus comes, your body knows what it's seeing, and it says, no, I've seen you before. I've seen this protein before. We're not having any of this. I have all sorts of immune response that I'm ready to put to bear to do this. Now, and the other thing I will say is that although there is although it was a lot, we had federal support to help some of the vaccine process, the manufacturing happened faster. These vaccine manufacturers didn't get to cut any corners when it came to any of the monitoring or any of those steps, any of the steps that were taken along the way to be able to authorize the use of this vaccine. So they didn't get to cut any corners, even though they knew we needed it, but they also knew that they had to follow all the same steps as a regular vaccine, so that we could use that same normal process to get this vaccine authorized for use in the US. What I will say, going back to efficacy, is that Pfizer and Moderna, when it comes to preventing symptomatic infections, Pfizer and Moderna, the efficacy showed maybe 94 to 95% in terms of preventing symptomatic COVID-19 infections in people who received 2 doses of the vaccine. Johnson & Johnson had a little bit less of an efficacy in symptomatic infections at maybe 74 or 75% in the US. However, they demonstrated a 93% efficacy for preventing hospitalizations, and that's actually 100% efficacy against death from COVID. And that's actually what we care the most about. If this was like a common cold, we probably wouldn't care as much. Why we care is people are getting really sick and people are dying. And all three of these vaccines, including Johnson & Johnson, have been shown to be efficacious against preventing disease, and in particular, preventing severe disease, hospitalization, and death. And that's what we need to have to be able to go back to normal. And even when we're looking at being able to go in, how is it performing out there in the world, looking at how it's doing in healthcare workers and long-term care facilities, it's still showing pretty good effectiveness when especially the mRNA vaccines that have been out a little longer, so we have more studies, in terms of their ability to prevent infection compared to unvaccinated individuals. I know that was a lot of information. I'll leave it at that for now and answer any questions folks have.
That is wonderful. So the beautiful thing about being virtual and on this platform is that people can go back and view this again. So, Nurse Zimmerman, let me bring you into the conversation. We're hearing about the efficacy of the vaccinations. From your professional perspective and opinion, is there one vaccine that is better than the other? And that's one question. But then I want also to know. I understand that there's 3 to 4 reasons why everyone should consider being vaccinated. So is one better than the other? And what are the things that we should know about getting and the reasons why we should get vaccinated?
Got it. Well, thank you for asking me to
Yes.
participate. This is joyful. We have always said the best vaccine is the vaccine that you have access to, because to confront this pandemic, it's going to take every single one of us working as we've never worked before as a community and across professions, across the world, actually. So as Dr. Viray said, women under 50 may want to consider the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine just because of the recent event. But I want to talk a little bit about that pause. That pause meant that the safeguards that the FDA and the CDC put in place worked. They've given millions and millions of vaccine, and 10 people developed unusual kinds of blood clots, and they paused the vaccine. That meant that they did exactly what they were supposed to do.
That was a good pause.
Yeah, that was a good pause. And they examined it, and they decided that it still is an incredibly good vaccine. And in fact, what they also know that they are on guard. There's a warning now. So they know to watch for this kind of side effect because it's treated differently than you treat other kinds of blood clots. So the system works. They are safe vaccines. And it really does take every single one of us to really. So I don't have a favorite. I can, it's the one that's up to you. But what is important is that you really all of us have the obligation to be educated, to be informed, and that takes trust. So one is safety. Are we telling the truth? And we encourage everyone to seek out the truth from reliable sources so that you're able to really make the right decision for you and your family, and you understand the risk. Why should we get vaccinated? You have to protect yourself. You have to protect your loved ones and your families. We want to end this wearing of masks, the social distances, the isolation. I've shared with some that my brother died of COVID-19. He was exposed to someone who is asymptomatic, and he died. My sister-in-law was sick, and even that wasn't enough for my own family. My daughter and my granddaughter both have had illnesses, and they thought because they were young that they were invincible. They didn't need to worry. But my daughter, for over 3 months, she hasn't had any taste or any smell.
Oh, wow.
And she's had a fog. So this is a tricky illness. There are groups who are at high risk. And I've seen this is in my 40 years of nursing, the only time that I've seen whole families hospitalized, whole families lose their lives. This is a serious illness that we need to work together. And we can't be cavalier. We can't give in to the fatigue that we've all encountered because of this. We are so close to being able to really find a solution to this. So I am asking you to be informed, make a good decision. And if you can, please take the vaccine to protect you, your family, your loved ones, because we want to go back to hugging and those gatherings. And boy, do I want to go to a baseball game.
Absolutely. Nurse Zimmerman, you packed a lot in there, and all of it was wonderful. Let me ask Nurse Zimmerman, if I may, herd immunity. What is it that we need to do? What percentage do we need to get to? And for some that do not know what herd immunity is, could you briefly explain?
Sure. Herd immunity is not specific to COVID-19. What the scientists and researchers have discovered that with almost any illness that's a viral kind of illness like COVID-19, it takes 75 to 85% of the community to have immunity, either through the disease or vaccination, so that the virus can stop replicating. So that's why when we talk about herd immunity, it's going to take 75 to 85% of us to step up and say, we want the vaccine so that the virus can come to an end.
Thank you. Thank you. Nurse Zimmerman, thank you for those answers and you sharing. Miss Smith-Callahan, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
As the Deputy County Manager of Community Affairs for Henrico, I'm interested in knowing and understanding the scope and the nature of the work that you're doing in the community as it relates to COVID-19.
Sure. And, it started literally at the start of the pandemic. And in March of last year, the county manager basically said everything, all hands on deck. This becomes now our focus for our citizens to do everything from outreach to food support to supplying PPE out into the community. Our COVID response was quick, it was swift, it was intentional, and we have stayed the course throughout these last 13, 14 months. And that continues now as we've morphed in December, January timeframe into we're still in COVID response. I feel like the education and what we're doing tonight is still a part of that response, but we're still educating, we're still informing, but we morphed into this whole, just vaccination, all out efforts around vaccinations and reaching out into the community. We were very, again, intentional. You'll hear me say the words intentional and strategic about our outreach efforts in the communities that we serve. We knew that underrepresented populations were being impacted greatly by this virus, more so than some other communities. So we worked with community partners, faith leaders, this body, the Henrico Ministers Conference, as well as the Richmond Baptist Ministers Conference. We started with a faith palette very early in the year. I think we started those conversations in February for our seniors in our Black community. And we just, working with those faith partners, as Dr. Ridley said, those lists and getting lists from each of our churches, a lot of times circumventing the barrier of the technology, just to be able to get our most vulnerable through our mass vaccination site that we set up in Henrico at the Richmond International Raceway. So I could go on and on. I get so excited at all of what Henrico has been able to accomplish. I credit Henrico for the Richmond Henrico Health District being at the numbers that they are for vaccinations because of that mass vaccination clinic that we were able to stand up in support of the health department. We have increased those numbers tremendously and been able to not just help the Richmond Henrico Health District area footprint, but also the state with those numbers. And those efforts continue every day. And we're going to stay the course, and we're going to continue our COVID response, if you will, in the way of educating and outreach. The distribution of PPE continues. Tomorrow, I have about 12, 14 students, young adults coming to pack care kits, and we will just continue to get PPE out into the community, continue to use those gifting of PPE, the face coverings and the hand sanitizer as a way to get information out about the safety and efficacy that you heard Dr. Viray and Nurse Zimmerman talk about tonight. Into our communities. We will continue to partner with faith partners. We'll continue to partner with those in the Hispanic and Asian communities, our Latin communities, Latinx. We know that these communities have the not just technology barrier, but also the language barrier often. And then for our undocumented, we want no citizen to feel like this vaccine is not for them. Right. Just this past Sunday, we did our first walk-up on-site registration with a focus on our Asian and Latinx community. And we encourage those without documentation to not worry. We eliminated that barrier and allowed for a walk-up clinic, the first of the Richmond Henrico Health District, our first over at RR, and which was our 51st mass vaccination clinic on that Sunday that we have hosted. So it's been all hands on deck. This county manager has allowed for his staff, his leadership staff, as well as other staff members to be repurposed. Those who were on light duty or on telework still came out and gave of their time and volunteered and worked everything, like I said, from March when we started food distribution in support of HCPS, our Henrico School District, and our McKinsey-Vento, and our students who we knew were identified as most vulnerable, to today, where we are continuing that vaccination outreach and to eliminate barriers to be able to get our underrepresented populations, as well as everyone else, vaccinated.
You have mentioned the Raceway as a mass vaccination site. Are there, for individuals that might be wondering what other sites might be available, are there other sites that are available for people to go get vaccinated?
Yes. And now that the vaccine is more plentiful, you heard Dr. Viray talk about, we have options now. And because the vaccine is, we're not fighting for supply, the supply is there. So therefore, the vaccination clinics have gone from, maybe 2 mass vaccination sites to now VDH. And I will allow Nurse Zimmerman and Dr. Viray to talk about this, but morphed into these pop-up locations where they're able to do pop-up clinics within communities. They have selected Baptist churches, some of which are members of this body, to become pop-up sites where they're doing vaccinations. They are all throughout, and even within the Hispanic community, our Muslim communities, even communities where there have been high numbers of people with COVID that don't have access to transportation as a barrier to be able to get to the mass vaccination sites. They have identified those as a part of their health equity. So it's just been tremendous to watch this evolve from literally December to now, and how as of yesterday, even the link for finding the vaccine is open to everyone. So not just open for Pfizer for 16 and up and Moderna for 18 and up, but also, and Johnson for 18 and up, but also a link now that folks who are technically savvy enough to do so can just click a link and literally be able to find the closest vaccine to them and select an appointment date that fits with their schedule. So we've come a long way. Wow.
And I know that you're doing the work because I'm getting those emails and hearing about the wonderful work that you and your team are doing at Henrico. Let me stay right there You had mentioned 16-year-olds. We just found out last week that authorization was given for 16-year-olds and up to receive the vaccine. What important information, and certainly this is open to anyone, but I think it would be probably geared towards either Nurse Zimmerman or Dr. Viray. So 16-year-olds and up can receive the vaccine. What do parents need to know about their child going to get vaccinated? Are there is the symptomology different? Are there things that they need to be aware of? And you know, because this is their baby, right? So they want to make sure that they are taken care of. So what do our parents need to know? Dr. Viray, Nurse Zimmerman?
Either one of us can take this.
Go ahead, Dr. Ray.
I think the first and foremost is that Pfizer vaccine is again, Pfizer vaccine is the only one of the three that's available for 16 and 17-year-olds. But again, at this point, anybody 16 or up can get Pfizer vaccine. There is no difference in the kinds of there's no difference in the severity of adverse events for a 16-year-old versus a 21-year-old. There is meaning that I still expect somebody who is 16 to still get those aches and those pains that mean that your body is building that immune response. So a lot of people talk about, oh, wow, for that day or so after I got my COVID vaccine, especially that second shot, I felt a little achy, I felt a little tired. That's your immune system building antibodies and training the response. And so actually especially if you're a healthy 16 and, just like your 18, 21-year-olds, I would not be surprised if some of them felt, a little achy, a little unwell the day or so after. It lasts for maybe a day or so and then it goes away. But your body has been trained so that when you see COVID virus, so similar, again, when your 16-year-old then is exposed, whether it be, out in the community, hanging out with their friends, going out to do things, their body will know what to do, and they won't have to go through being infected. You won't have to worry as much about the potential for them to bring it and expose loved ones in their families or their friends or others who may be at risk for severe COVID. And they will be protected, and they will also be protecting their community. I think it's just as important that our 16 or 17-year-olds get vaccinated, because they're now eligible to be vaccinated. And I will just give a hint that I would say that before the end of the summer, in fact, early in this summer, I do anticipate seeing authorization for 12 to 15-year-olds. So we're going to be having the same conversation. I know, I'm excited. We anticipate having the same conversation with parents about their younger babies, the 12 to 15-year-olds. These children, in the same way, we want to make sure they're protected against infection. So
absolutely, and thank you for sharing that about 16 and under, because that was going to be my next question and the time frame, and you just answered it, and I'm grateful. So let me shift gears a little bit, and let me go. I'm going to go to Dr. Ridley, and Dr. Ridley, recently I heard a 26-year-old was asked whether or not they were going to get the vaccination. His reply: there's not a lot of people dying out here our age, and it hasn't been out for more than a year. And besides, we don't know the long-term effects. So, Dr. Ridley, our millennials, our young people in our congregations, what type of feedback are you receiving from your teenagers and millennials in your congregation and community? And how are you addressing that with them about the vaccination?
Now, I cannot speak to this 26-year-old. That was a great lead in, because that's a true scenario of what I think some of our young adults are thinking, that they are not at risk. But I go back to I'm a person who shares good news. That's what I was called to do, right? When you preach the gospel, you're sharing the good news. You're sharing it from the Bible. But there's other type of good news that we share too as well, which is these facts that we can share about how helpful the vaccine is and why we should be receiving it. The fact that someone would think that folks who are young are not dying, that is not true. If you take a look at the news, if you take a look at even social media, which so many of our young people, our millennials, our teenagers are looking at social media, you will see that there are young people who have contracted COVID-19. I don't know the statistics, but they have passed away. So as we begin to share information, of course, it's on a case-by-case basis. I'm not just a pastor, I'm also a mother. I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old. My 19-year-old and my husband and myself have already been vaccinated. My 15-year-old is waiting. Why? Because the rest of her family is vaccinated. And we've been talking about the fact that which the information shared with us was wait your turn, and when it's your turn to get your vaccine. And so that's the same thing that we're sharing with our congregation. I will say that we have awesome parents in our congregation that are, really talking, I believe, to our teenagers. I do know some parents have already gotten those 16-year-olds vaccinated as they've had opportunity. So it's on a case by case. I have not had anyone, Dr. Davis, come to me, a young person or millennial, come to me with apprehensions personally. But I do know that there are many people that have apprehensions, or they think, well, it's not going to happen to me, right? And so that just becomes a prayer concern, right? Because everybody has to make their own decisions. But I will say that our young people are brighter than ever. They are looking at, the way I've explained it to somebody on the phone one time was you have to look at your alternative, right? You can get the shot or not get the shot. You can die from COVID-19 or not die from COVID-19. I mean, when you lay out alternatives, after a while, it's got to stick in somebody's mind like, hey, there is something available to me that can help me, so that even if by a long shot someone did get COVID-19, it would not be as harmful as if you were not vaccinated. I will say that one of the sermons that I preached during this time of us doing virtual church, because just as the healthcare system has had to turn on a dime, and as Monica Smith-Callahan was sharing, to act quickly and to change and to get that information, one of the scriptures that come to mind is that we're not given the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind, right? That sound mind piece means get the facts. God does not tell us to drop our brains off at the door before we go into the church house, right? Get the facts and use your faith, right? Those two things go together. And I think forums like this, if there is a parent or if there's someone watching this who knows of someone who's like that 26-year-old, share this information with them so that they can know that this is a helpful thing. One other thing that I've shared is, some apprehensions are because of history, especially with Black and brown people, but in the case of this vaccine, as we all know, they're not going into some back room, pulling out one vaccine for Black and brown people and going in another room and pulling out things for our Caucasian brothers and sisters. Everyone is getting the same type of vaccine. And so when we share the information, prayerfully, someone like that 26-year-old or others will begin to see, hey, there's a movement. And as we know from group dynamics, the more people that get it, it almost becomes unpopular not to have it, right? And finally, I'm going to share this. When you want to tap into the millennials and you want to tap into the teenagers, start to talk about the stuff that they want to do that they won't be able to do freely if they don't have the vaccine. Okay, because one of the things that I missed, and I'm not a millennial, and I know, Dr. Davis, you thought I was, but I'm not a millennial. But one thing that I missed was hugging my mama and hugging my dad. And when you start to relate to young people on things that they will be able to do with more peace of mind. We have a lot of our students, and I don't know about your congregation, we have a lot of students that are college age. Dorm life You want to hang out in dorms and do all of this, and we have some of our young people that pledge sororities and fraternities, so they want to be with their frat brothers and frat sisters. Sorority sisters, get the vaccine. Speak to the issues that are related to their passion. And although it's not all deep and it's not theological, it is still good news. And it's still connecting them to what's important to them, because some of our young people were social distancing before it was popular, because they got a phone, and phones make people think that they're connected, right? I have two totally different temperate kids. One is very social, one is very quiet. But regardless of what your thing is or your personality, if you want to hang around long enough to do some of those things that your heart desires, right? The Bible says, don't get weary in well doing, right? But you can reap a harvest if you faint not. So as Nurse Zimmerman was saying, we can't give up. We can't give up talking to our young people one-on-one. We can't give up trying to encourage people, because we have to not be weary in our well-doing, because the harvest is coming. And we're going to be able to do those things. Like I was able to hug my mama and my daddy, and we cried, and it was a mess, but it was beautiful. And so that's all I want to share about that, is just, just continue to talk to our young people and give them those scenarios and alternatives. And they are bright. They will get it, and they will do the right thing.
That's great advice. And we're going to open the doors of the church right now.
Listen, let me put up my cash app.
You just dropped the mic right there. We're going to open the doors of the church. We're going to put up your cash app so we can get the light community. but just staying right there, I want to bring in the others. Miss Smith-Callahan, what is your advice to teens and millennials in this time of COVID and pandemic and getting the vaccination?
Dr. Davis, why would you bring me in behind Dr. Ridley?
I'm sorry.
Right. I'm over here in my head shouting with her. That was amazing. Can I say ditto and get away with that?
You can.
Say, No, I'm not, nor am I a millennial. Thank you very much, but I am not. But when I am talking to younger people, like my nieces and nephews, I go by personal stories as well. I will say I was able to do my 20-something nieces and nephews, get them through the racetrack as soon as it was their turn, and to have them vaccinated. But I do have one nephew who is outstanding and fearful for many reasons, but I think some of it is just pure stubbornness, and saying that I am not going to take this vaccine, not scientific, not anything other than TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and what he's hearing and have read, and not even read thoroughly. I think it's been a headline and using that as the reasoning why. So as Dr. Ridley shared, and as I shared with my nieces and nephews as they were on the fence, that what you get from a TikTok is not always scientific and definitely not always true. So seek the facts for yourself, make educated decisions. And as we heard Dr. Viray and Nurse Zimmerman both say, the risk of not having a vaccine and contracting this virus and having a reaction to it far outweighs the limited amount of reaction that you receive, that one may have after a first or second dose, and what we've seen in Johnson. I'll take the odds of 7 million and 9 or 10, and not even 9 or 10 deaths, but 9 or 10 who had these rare blood clots. I'll take those odds any day.
Excellent advice. Nurse Zimmerman, Dr. Viray, would you like to jump in and just share some advice, or no?
This is even harder.
I know.
Holy cow, I can't follow these ladies. Maybe Deb Zimmerman can. I would just accept not as well as if we want to get back to doing sports, if we want to go back to sports, going to sports events, if we want to go out and hang out with our friends in indoors at a party and not be worried about contracting or giving COVID-19 or have all these restrictions preventing us from doing these things. It all comes down to vaccination. That's how we get there. And I don't know that there is a more compelling argument. I could say, yes, all the people you love, the people you care about, your parents, your family, your friends, they all rely on you not to, you're to not transmit COVID-19. But I think the motivating factor for a lot of folks is if we want to do what we normally love to do, we have to be vaccinated. We have to get in, we have to be immune. And there's only one safe way to get there. And the safest way is through vaccination. And that's probably what I would add. But I just acknowledge that these women have said it way better than I ever could.
Right.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Bring it home, Ms. Zimmerman.
History has demonstrated. Oh gosh! Well, history has demonstrated that vaccines work. They are working now, and if we all work together as a community, we can all come together and all hug one another. It's been an incredible night. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes. We're not through yet, though, because I have just a couple more questions, and it has to do with the variants that we're seeing with COVID-19. And so, Nurse Zimmerman and Dr. Viray, I want to know if you can speak to the facts about these variants and what we need to know.
Well, this is Dr. Viray's expertise, so you take it away.
All right. So here's what happens: is these variants arise when they replicate in the human body. So whenever people are infected, and they replicate in the human body and they transmit it. That's how you get these variants to generate. And the problem is some of these variants that have been generated are more infectious, cause more severe disease. And so the two best ways to prevent these variants, A, further variants from arising, and B, these variants that we have from propagating further, is number one, to get vaccinated. Some of these variants, they're perfectly susceptible, not susceptible. Your body, the immune response you get from vaccination will be perfectly great against these variants. Others, even when we see some evidence that there might be less of an immune response, we're still seeing that there's a benefit to being vaccinated, even against these variants. So, and if no matter what wild, normal variant, non-variant vaccine lineage, or not virus lineage we're talking about, the less we give the virus a chance to generate more variants. In other words, the fewer people the virus can go through, the fewer variants we'll have to manage to deal with, to be afraid of. So the two biggest things: get vaccinated, get vaccinated, because that's how we stop these variants, and that's how we stop. And that is how we get back to normal. But that is the best way to prevent more variants from going around, in addition to social distancing and mask wearing, of course, because we aren't all immune yet. And also to prevent further emergence.
We may want to add just a little that viruses have a history of variations and replications, and that's why we get a flu vaccine every year. So the next question is, are we going to need boosters? And the manufacturers are all working on boosters now, because we suspect, and I'm sure Dr. Viray has an opinion on this, we are going to need boosters. And what that time frame will be, I'm not sure. I don't know if you know, Melissa.
I don't. It's not out. People aren't committing wholeheartedly to, we're absolutely going to, none of us are going to be surprised to find that we're getting a booster on this, just because of the way this particular virus works.
Wonderful. To all of you, this has been fantastic. I have been helped immensely. And I want to ask each of you just to briefly, as we close, to briefly share any last thoughts, any encouragement for those individuals who are stressed out, tired, and waiting for things to return to the new normal. And I want to go in this order if I could. Dr. Viray, Nurse Zimmerman, Ms. Smith-Callahan, and Dr. Ridley. Dr. Viray.
Thank you for not making me go behind Dr. Ridley again. I cannot. That's a bar I just cannot hit. I would say one thing. It is that we are so close. The light is there at the end of the tunnel. We have a vaccine. The vaccine works. We just have to get to the point where enough of us are immune so that when we get that new introduction of COVID, it doesn't go to other people. We're almost there. We just need to get to the finish line. And so I know it's been a really rough year, but we're so close.
Thank you. There's Zimmerman.
This is an incredible time for us to come together. It is a time for us to make the decision which is right for us and our family. It's a time for us to come together as a community, as a Commonwealth, and as the United States and world. We can do this. And as Dr. Viray said, we're almost there. It's time to take it home.
Wonderful. Ms. Smith-Callahan.
And mine is just a few words. Thank you. Stay the course. Get vaccinated.
Thank you. Dr. Ridley. You're muted. Okay.
Am I muted now?
No, you're unmuted. You're good. We can hear you.
Okay. I just want to ask a question and appeal to the heart of those that might still be questioning should they get it. And I guess my question is, how many more people need to die before you decide to live? The Bible speaks of abundant life, that we are to have abundant life. And for me, I don't feel like the abundant life is wearing a mask for another year or being separated from people that we love. We've been able to manage and shift and ebb and flow, and we've had the faith to keep going. But I think for those who are still questioning whether they are going to get the vaccine, I think that's the relevant question. Do you want to just do you just want to have life, or do you want to have abundant life? And if you want abundant life, I believe there are some things that you need to do, which is participate in your own success story, right? We have a vaccine that's available. You are a character in your story of life. Get the vaccine, be a part of your success story, because something it's available, it's free, you can get it, and there is something wonderful on the other side of through. And I think the last 13 months have been when we went through, right? I want to be on the other side of through. So that's my appeal to everyone. And that's it. Get vaccinated. Do it, and it'll be a blessing.
Bottom line, all of us need to get vaccinated in order for us to get back to a place of new normal. I've always said, and I've shared with my congregation, I don't think we need to go back to normal because maybe there was something with normal that wasn't quite right. So we are going into a new normal. And I want to say thank you to each of you for your expertise, for your skill, and how you are using your gifts in the communities in which you live and work. And so with that, we want to give our last expressions to the president of the Henrico Ministers Conference, Reverend Zenora Manson.
Yes, I am just totally in awe of what has happened tonight. I've been touched, I've been encouraged, and I hope that you have too. And that those of you who have sort of been on the fence, that now you have been given the facts, that now maybe you will be able to make a sound decision. Now, there is one thing I want you to know is that, yes, I have been fully vaccinated. I made that choice because not just for myself, but for others. And so we want to encourage you, based on what you've heard tonight, to make a decision to be a part of the herd immunity. We want to take time right now just to say thank you to our panelists, to Dr. Davis, our moderator, to Dr. Viray, to Ms. Monica Smith-Callahan, to Dr. Kimberly Ridley and Nurse Zimmerman. What an outstanding job. I believe that we have touched lives and that lives have been transformed just by the facts that you've shared, but also by the word of God that has been shared. And so we give God glory and praise for what he has done. I'm looking forward to the new normal. And a part of the new normal is I love to hug. And so we're looking forward to the hugs. We're looking forward to the smiles. We're looking forward to God doing a new thing. And I love what Pastor Ridley said when she said, addressing the issue of fear. God has not given you the spirit of fear, but he's given you power, love, and a sound mind. And we want to add to that. Once you've gotten knowledge, once you get understanding, you need to get wisdom so that you can make a sound decision. So in the midst of all that we have been through and all that we are going through, I want to remind our virtual audience, God is still in control. He still hears and he still answers prayer. And yes, as Nurse Zimmerman said, we are all in this together. And I want to end, before I share a couple of other things with you, I want to end with a quote I think that's going to travel wide from Dr. Ridley that said, and I quote, "Get the facts, use your faith." Get the facts, use your faith. And so with those thoughts in mind, I want to share with you that Henrico Ministers Conference not only serves as a light of hope for social justice, but it also serves as a light of hope for meeting human needs. And so we have our amenities drive that will end this Friday, and it's designed to meet the needs of students in the middle schools and also to meet the needs of the homeless in the hotels. You can see from this post right here what you can do. You can donate to Givelify, or you can mail an offering in to help us to support students of Henrico County Public Schools. And just in case you are interested in becoming a part of the Henrico Ministers Conference, we'd love to have you. If you're clergy, pastor, associate minister, it's only $25 for clergy membership fee. And so we ask you to download the app, or you can mail it to Mount Olive Baptist Church, care of Reverend Allison Roldan, 8775 Mount Olive Avenue, Glen Allen, Virginia, 23060. And with those thoughts in mind, I want you to remember, pray without ceasing, and we are required to walk by faith and not by sight, because God is in control. May his peace be with you until we meet again. Be blessed, my brother. Be blessed, my sister. And remember, pray without ceasing. We love you.